Okay, let's talk about yesterday. Story time. Story time. Let's talk about yesterday. So, all right, I'm up till like 1, 2 a.m., you know, minding my own business, sleeping. I wake up at 5 in the morning. I just feel this sharp. It wakes me up out of nowhere. It's 5 a.m. This super sharp, intense pain over here, and it moves. I feel it like move over to like the bottom right side over here. I couldn't move. I couldn't get up. I was thinking to myself, I was like, am I dying? I was like, what's going on? Like, what is this pain? And so I told myself in my head, I was like, well, I probably have to go to the hospital. The pain, an 8.5 out of 10. It was terrible. I start like looking on my phone and stuff. I Google, what is this, blah, blah, blah. Everything I read pointed to appendix, appendix, appendix. Your appendix is about to explode. Go to the hospital if you have these symptoms. The pain, it was like here and it went to like my lower right side where my appendix would be. So Celine already moved out. I know both Janet and Ahmad had to wake up early. In my head, I was like, they can't even drive. I don't want to wake them up. Instead, I texted Jackson from 100 Thieves and my assistant, I might need a ride to the hospital. Ibrahim from 100 Thieves was going to pick me up because Jackson was in New York. Ibrahim came, picked me up, drove me to the hospital, and I told him, I was like, honestly, I don't know how long this is gonna take. You don't have to wait here. You don't have to wait. And he said, don't worry, I will be here the whole time. And yeah. I was in the hospital for 6 hours from 6 a.m. to 12 p.m. I just want to say Ib stayed the whole time without service. He had service on his phone if he left the hospital, but I found out afterwards that he was there the whole time without service. So I just feel really bad that he must have been so bored and that must have ruined his morning. He was very determined to stay. So I was very grateful for that. I get to the hospital. They check me in. They take me to the room and I'm crying from the stress. We all have masks on, right? I have a mask on. I'm being rolled to my room. This hospital experience was like a horror video game, okay? They were packed. There were people in beds outside of the rooms. And they park me in my room. I'm waiting. There's one guy in one room fighting a nurse. Like actually, like I hear screaming and yelling and I hear shuffling and things are thrown around and stuff. And they're just like, hey, like yelling at him, telling him to calm down. And then in the other room next to me, there's this really, really, really old man, like really old man. He's saying for like hours, please, please, someone help me. It hurts so bad, please. Please. And it's a really old man. And it just reminds me of my dad's voice when he was going through cancer and when he was dying. And then down the hall, I hear like a woman giving birth or something, like screaming. And I'm in my little room, you know, just listening and watching and crying a little bit. The doctor finally comes in. They're pushing on my stomach and stuff, but it wasn't hurting as much as it was when I was still at home. And so they asked me, they're like, any vomiting, any fever? And I was like, no vomiting, no fever. And so they ruled out appendicitis because the pain was going away and I didn't have any other symptoms for it to explode. And so the next thing they thought was, okay, well, your symptoms are likely to be ovarian cysts. And I was like, well, that makes sense because like that pain was so terrible. It must be a cyst exploding probably, right? They give me an IV. Also, like, look at my arm. It is so bruised right now. Oh, can't really see it that well, but like this is all a bruise right here. Yeah, that's all a bruise. From the IV. I have a slight fear of needles. And before they did the IV, they withdrew 4 vials of blood. And so I'm in the chair like I'm shaking from the nerves because I have never gotten that much blood drawn before. And the nurse is like, oh, you remind me of me. Because I get nervous when I get shots. And I'm like, she tried to find the vein in my left arm, couldn't find it. And she looks at my right arm. She's like, oh, this one's good. And I was like, are you sure? Because I've had blood drawn, like a little bit of blood drawn before. And they would miss it. I told her, I was like, I've had nurses in the past like miss my vein. She says, it's okay. I'm sure I can get it. I'm shaking violently. And she's like, oh. And she's like, don't look, I made kind of a mess. And at that point, that's when I start feeling like I'm gonna black out because she's like telling me, she's like, oh, I made a little bit of a mess. I can find it. And shaking, she draws 4 vials of blood. I'm laying there. Okay, it's done. I look over. I look over and my blood is all over the bed. My blood is everywhere. And I'm feeling stressed. I'm lightheaded. I'm like, yeah, this is the best. At that point, an hour passes. There's blood next to me. The doctor comes in. And he's like, okay. He's checking all my vitals and stuff. He puts this thing in my ear and he says, you know, I just want to let you know, you would probably have better hearing if you would get your ears cleaned. And I said, excuse me? What? So I'm on my bed. You know, they're rolling me out to the room. This lovely nurse comes in and the first thing she says is, hi, I'm gonna be taking pictures of you today or whatever. And she's like, I'm an intern, by the way. So, you know, bear with me. And I start crying a little bit more. I'm so stressed out at this point. And I said, okay. The next thing I know, another nurse comes in and she's monitoring the intern. Then she goes, okay, it's time to put the camera in your... They take this camera thing and they roll me back to my room. I'm traumatized, bleeding out. Then another guy comes in and he's like, oh, we forgot to give you or take a pee sample from you. And I told him, I was like, they told me to pee already before the ultrasound. He was like, well, we need a pee sample. So I said, okay, well, I don't have any pee left. What do you want me to do? So he gives me like a jug of water and he says, drink this, I'll be back. So I'm like, okay. So I'm chugging. I go into the bathroom when I'm ready to go with my potty cup. And I finally do it, go back to my room, wait even longer. He takes my potty cup. All of the testing is done. And I get my results. The doctor comes back to me with this pamphlet and he says to me after 6 hours, everything is normal. And I'm like, okay. No danger is found. We have struck a deal, in all caps. Given your age, the quality, character, and location of your completely resolved pain.
Bruh.
Your age and gender, rather than expose you to the radiation of a CT scan, you have agreed to return to the emergency department tomorrow morning for a repeat exam and repeat white count and to return right away sooner to this clinic. I said, so I was supposed to go today, this morning, to go do it again. And that's why I'm streaming. Because I'm not going. I'm not going. Because in my head, they did offer me medication, something that started with a B for like cramps or whatever. I said no because my pain was an 8 or a 9 when I woke up that morning. And it dwindled down throughout the hours to like a 3 or a 2. So they wanted me to come back because he was thinking they missed something. And I said, well, I don't have any pain anymore. I feel like this is the part where it feels like it's a money grab at this point because they gave me a pamphlet of my results. I went over every single page, all of the pages. Everything is normal. Everything. My blood is normal. I think that I wait out the next few days. If I feel more pain, it is probably stomach or intestine related. I think that we did testing in the wrong area, but I am very, very, very glad that I went. Honestly, it felt like it was an extremely overdue hospital appointment. I don't even remember the last time I went to a hospital just to get a checkup. So I'm just really glad that happened. I do feel tired. When I got home yesterday, the day didn't end, let me tell you. The day did not end. Yesterday, after I got home from the hospital, it's around noon. I get home, I'm exhausted. The girls are checking up on me. Everyone's been super sweet, kind, and supportive. I forget that the landlord is showing the house. I had like 3 hours of sleep. I'm exhausted from just like all of the fear and the trauma and stuff that everything I went through. The landlord comes over with like 10 people and is like showing people one at a time. And I told her, I was like, listen, I just got back from the hospital. I'm tired. I'm gonna lay in bed while you show the house. And every time she would come in with a new person and I'm in bed like this. I just took a shower, you know, because I just got back from the hospital and my hair is wet and I'm ugly. People are coming into my room and the landlord's like, oh, come, it's okay. It's totally fine. Take a look, help yourself, look around. And then And then she's like, oh, yes, she's a little sick on the bed. And like, these people are coming in and the look that they give me in bed is just like fear, like pure fear. And uncomfortable. Like, they are so uncomfortable touring a house that people live in. I'm uncomfortable too. Because there's like grown men and strangers coming into my room while I'm in bed like a little weasel, you know, suffering from my experience yesterday. Finally, she showed the house to like everyone. It was like 10 people. One guy like recognized me. One guy was like, the landlord comes in and she's like, oh yeah, Rachel, there's these people, they're into gaming. They wanted to ask you some gaming questions. And I said, not now. Not right. And he comes in and he's just like looking at my setup and he was like, oh wow. And so he was like, wow, so you guys are all streamers. And he was like, so you work for 100 Thieves? And I'm laying in bed having a conversation with a person I don't know. And I'm like, I'm actually the co-owner. And then the landlord's standing over here and she's like, isn't that amazing? And in my head, I'm just like, F off! So yeah, that was my day yesterday. That was my day yesterday.